There's a lot of accounts floating about, and I've heard many of them of loan approval being withdrawn for persons on pandemic unemployment payment. Do you have any more than anecdotal evidence of that, and if so, is it a concern?
As far as the mortgage point that you just made, and I'll just repeat what I said earlier, I think it is important that the lenders do a proper assessment of the creditworthiness of the borrowers. That is absolutely important, and not just in the interests of the lender, but it's also in the interest of the borrower, and it's also in the interest of the community as a whole. On the other hand, I do think it's also important that that assessment is done properly. It is actually done by looking at the creditworthiness of the borrower. So I was a bit uncomfortable when I read the other day that there were these blanket approaches where if you received a particular type of payment, you were not entitled to a mortgage, because that implied, for me, that there wasn't a proper targeted credit worthiness assessment. There was some broad brush being done. So I think it is important that that's done. And I think, unfortunately, that will mean in some cases that a very, very long-term financial commitment can't be entered into because it's not in the interests of anybody.
And with regard to SMEs, do you have any similar concerns that a proper assessment isn't being carried out with regard to the reasons why SMEs haven't been able to make repayments on borrowings, i.e. if they're a business which is particularly affected? I've had businesses come into me who have had no business effectively for the past number of months, and but have a very good track record in the past in repaying any borrowings that they had, and yet they're being treated the same as companies. They're being treated as if there was no particular reason and that they're defaulting on their loans almost for the sake of it, without any analysis of the underlying conditions in the market that they're in.
I've heard less of what you've just described. Obviously, again, if there are broad brush rules being applied, I'd be uncomfortable about them. On the other hand, it would not be surprising for banks to be exercising, and actually any credit institution to be exercising caution right now. I think the interesting thing to do with SMEs is how many of them do not have bank debt, as we talked about earlier. And actually a significant number of them don't even have a relationship with their bank manager. I think that is that's quite a different situation to what you normally see with borrowers in the housing market.